welcome back to Tech Tricks and Fundamentals, and today we will be learning about functions in C and how to use them in your programs. So before we get started, I just want to say that 76.5% of you are not subscribed, so it would mean a lot to me if you subscribed and watched the videos and liked them. Okay, so let's get started. So what are functions? So functions are just a tool that you use in C and other languages to perform any operation separate of the main function. The main function is also a function, as you'll later see. So how do you define a function? So a function is defined by these parts. So first you type out the return type. So in this case, we'll be returning a total, which is an integer. So you type integer here, then you type the function name, and then you type the parameter. So in this case, we'll be given two values, two integer values, as we see right here, and we name the first value A and we name the second value B. So and over here, we calculate the total, which is, in this case, we're finding the product. We multiply A times B, and then you return the total, which is A times B. So how you call it is you put the function name, and then you pass two values, just 2 and 5. So in this case, 2 becomes A, 5 becomes B. You do 2 times 5, which is 10, and you return total, which becomes to return 10. So every time we make a function or we make a program, we always include the main function, which is our integer main, and then over here we add our values or our commands, and then we end it with a return 0. So now you can finally understand why this is so. So since we return 0 here, we name it an integer because 0 is an integer, and then we give it the main name. So the main, giving it the name main, tells C and the executor that this is our main function, and everything inside is what we must be doing. So all the other functions and structures and everything we call must happen inside this main function. So over here we just print f hello world, and we return 0, which is our return type. So now that we know how functions work, we are going to make a quick program using the online C compiler to give us the minimum value of an array when we pass an array through the function. So let's get started. So here at the top, we include our standard input-output file. And now we want to declare the main function, as we learned. So it's going to be an integer because we're returning 0. So integer, the name, which always must be main. We pass nothing inside a main argument. And over here, right now, we'll just make a return 0. We'll come back to this later. Now that we have this, let's make our function that gives us the minimum value of an array. So because it's going to be a minimum value, it's an integer. We want to name it minimum. And we want to pass an integer array through it, which we'll call values. And we'll pass 5 letters through it. So now we want to, first of all, we want to define an initial minimum value. So we'll declare the first element of this array inside here. So we'll say minimum number is equal to values 0. Now we want to run a for loop to check if the remaining values in this are smaller than this one. And if they are, we'll set that value to minimum number instead. So we do this by running a for loop. So since we already have the first value stored inside minimum num, we don't need to start I at 0. So instead we just start I at 1 to check from the second element and so forth. So inside our for loop, we want an if loop. And so if our value, current value, which starts at the second and third and so on, is less than the minimum number that already stored, we want the minimum number to be that value. Just like this. So now that we have our for loop ready to check everything, we want to return this minimum number to get our minimum value. You just do this by return and our. So because this is an integer, we want to say integer right here. So because we know this is an integer and this is an integer, the program will work just fine. So inside our main function, we should call this actual and then actually print out the numbers. So over here, we wanted to say integer list, an array is equal to, so this will be the array that we're passing through it. So now that we have our list defined, we need to print out the minimum value. So we do f, and since it's an integer, we do %i because as we learned that before, %i, comma, and over here, we want to call the minimum actual function. So we call minimum our function and we pass our list through it. So this list is an array like I passed into this, which is called values now, and it stores 5 because we have 5 over here. So as we run it, we should get 1. So as we run it, we get 1. So if we were to change it to this 4 to be 0, our minimum number should be 0 now. So when we run this, we get 0. Of course, as negative numbers are also integers, if you change this to -5, we should get -5, which pops up here. So that's all we have for today. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye.